Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Now, I'm going to show you something that you're probably not expecting from someone like NZXT, a proper small form factor case with a built-in 140mm AIO and a 650 watt 80 plus gold power supply. Now there's a bit of a story behind this. We actually got shown this case back at Computex in Taiwan back last year in like June, I think it was. And for obvious reasons, we couldn't share any information about this case until now. So let's give it the Gear Seekers treatment. Let's do a build, let's do all that stuff, and then we'll talk about the case and what I like and what I dislike about it. Spoiler alert, I haven't even opened this thing up yet, so you're getting the first hands-on experience with me as we go through the process of building it. So let's do a build. Now the name of this case is the NZXT H1. It comes in two variants. This is the black one. It also comes in white as well. And it's a 13.6 litre small form factor case. And you might be thinking to yourself,
well, there's heaps of other cases that are like 7 and 7.5 litres that are smaller.
Well, they don't actually come included with the all-in-one liquid cooler and a power supply as well. So this is actually less of a chassis or a case rather, and more of a bare bones PC, if anything, where you basically just provide motherboard, CPU, and RAM and storage, and that's it, and everything else is already in here. So let's build it, let's build it, let's build it, let's build it, let's go. It's got a 140mm AIO, and there's one thing that I noticed right out of the gate. It shares the same pump design as the NZXT M22, which in my opinion isn't optimal because you're losing this surface space of the radiator with a pump right in the middle of it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll see what happens when we actually test it. It's on a nice little swinging door mechanism, which I think is pretty cool. It's got the water block built in. It's got the Intel cooler mounting on it out of the box, and it does have pre-applied thermal paste, so you won't actually need to apply it for yourself. You'll also notice the power supply installed up the top. It's a 650 watt 80 plus gold. I think it's made by Sonic, but it has an NZXT logo on it. I'm just gonna go out and say that because I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. And yeah, obviously it does have that pre-applied thermal paste. It's gonna be a very easy installation for this. So let's crack on with the build and get the motherboard in, and then I'll finally decide what GPU to use because I haven't got that far yet. So yeah, let's do it.
Tell me like you like it. Tell me how you like it. If I put it right there. Tell me like you like it. Tell me how you like it. If I put it right there. Tell me like you like it. Tell me how you like it. If I put it right there. Tell me like you like it. Tell me how you like it. If I put it right there. Tell me what's the vibe. Tell me what's the vibe. Tell me what's the vibe. Tell me what's the vibe.
There's a few cables I didn't end up plugging in, and one of them is this USB Type-C connector. This board doesn't have it, so I can't use it, but I can't remove it at the same time. What I can do is I can just tuck it back in there and it should stay right out of the way. The other thing the power supply's got is provisions for a second GPU, which are quite obviously you can't make fit in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to remove that because it's a fully modular power supply. Next up there is two SATA power or SATA power connectors if you wanted to plug in two hard drives. There's two 2.5 inch drive bays here if you wanted to mount those extra drives, but because I'm not going to be doing that, I'm also going to be removing that modular cable. So now we have some really good cable management. The cable management in this is super easy to do. One of the easiest to cable manage in terms of ITX cases or small form factor cases I've ever seen. You probably also noticed that I went with the Radeon 7 in this build, mainly because it's one of the only GPUs I had that was a true 2-slot GPU. However, I think you could possibly go for a 2.5 slot, but 3 slot would be pushing it, and it would probably sit right up against the side panel, or it probably wouldn't allow you to slide the side panel on. But I don't have a thicker GPU at the moment to use, so I can't test that. I'm sure other people will test that, and I'm sure once this releases in NZXT's website will have all the info you need. But as far as I can tell you now, I don't think it will fit just from eyeballing it. There's also no additional places to mount any other fans. What you see is what you get. Basically one 140mm fan on the cooler to do everything. But that being said, the whole case is basically open anyway, so I think it's going to be okay when we do the thermals on this. Overall, I think this is a nice case. But yeah, let's finish putting it back together, and then we can do your favorite part, the B-roll.
Tell me like you like it. Tell me how you like it. If I put it right there. Tell me like you like it. Tell me how you like it. If I put it right there.
Hey Claire, you know what time it is?
Time to go to the pub.
Why do you always say different stuff to what we're actually doing? What do you think I'm doing right now?
Flying a helicopter.
But why would I do that?
Because it's my birthday.
It is not your
It
birthday.
is so.
It is definitely not your birthday. Your birthday is like not now.
Daddy's speaking.
Speaking of Daddy speaking, it's actually peeling time. I'm gonna peel it because that's what you guys love, so it's time to do it. Are you ready? Oh, that sounds pretty good. You can't do it with no hands. Shut up the hands! It's B-roll time.
Why are you watching?
hope you guys enjoyed the build of the brand new NZXT H1. This case is super easy to build in. The cable management is awesome. You can actually fit quite a large GPU. However, I'm gonna say that 2.5 slot is probably going to be the maximum. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I don't have a spare one to test right now, despite all of the GPUs you can see behind me. They're all being tied up in other projects and other ongoing stuff that we've got going on. Now, let's talk about parts, because that's everyone's favorite part of the video. The CPU is the Ryzen 7 3700X. I picked this CPU because it's one of the only chips I've got available at the time of filming this video. The motherboard is the ASRock X570 ITX TB3 Phantom Gaming. We've used this motherboard so many times. It's a pretty fantastic board. It's got very limited cooler support, but it does have Intel cooler mounting, which actually worked out in the case for this case, which is nice. Although the case does also include AM4 cooler mounting as well. But I'll talk about all that a little bit later on in the video. The RAM I went for was 32 gigs of Corsair LPX at 3200 megahertz. It's a low profile memory kit, and because you can't really see inside this computer, you can only see on one side, I opted not to go for RGB memory, although you could probably make RGB memory fit. There's quite a bit of RAM clearance as it is between the fan and the RAM slots itself. So yeah, I'm guessing something like G.Skill, Triton Z or Neo or whatever will probably fit in there, no problem. For storage, I went with the brand new Seagate FireCuda 520. You can check out our full review up there if you haven't seen it yet. We put that one out yesterday. It is a blazing fast drive, and it doesn't thermal throttle without a heatsink, which I thought was pretty cool too. For the GPU, I went with the Radeon 7 for one simple reason. It was sitting there, it suits the aesthetic of this build, and this isn't a permanent system, so it doesn't really matter what GPU I went with. I just wanted to really test out the thermals, and the Radeon 7 gets super hot, so it's actually quite a good fit for a build like this. Obviously, I don't need to talk about the cooler or the power supply because they come with the case, so it doesn't matter how you configure it, they will always be there. It's a 650 watt gold power supply and a 140 millimeter AIO with the pump in the radiator, which is a very controversial design choice, but I can see why they did it for packaging reasons after building. Now, you'll also notice that there's some additional RGB. I put that in there just for a little bit of bling, just to light up the interior. However, if I was to be building this PC for myself, I actually wouldn't put any lighting in it because it just looks nice as it is. And that actually leads me into the next thing with the H1. I don't know why they did a tempered glass front panel. It doesn't make a lot of sense on this case. To make the thermals a little bit better, they could have literally just made this like the back panel, and it could have been just a nice black box or a white box depending on which one you went for. But I guess it's NZXT at the end of the day, and they love to have their tempered glass windows. But personally, I'd like to see a version of this case without it, or if they actually allowed you to buy the side panel separately, you could just put the other side on here and you'd be good to go. It's a pretty interesting case. Not really expecting NZXT to put out something like this, although we have known about this case for how long now, Claire?
A while?
7, 8 months. It's been an ongoing thing, and it's been delayed a couple times, but yeah, here it is right now. And I think this case is available whenever this video comes out, but that I think is only for the US. In Australia, it will be available in April, not any sooner than that. All right, enough of the jibber jabber. Let's check out some of the benchmarks of the NZXT H1, and you guys can decide whether or not you think it's worth your hard-earned money, which we're gonna talk about after that. So yeah, let's roll the benchmarks. The thermals are about what you'd expect from a small form factor case, although like on second thought, it's not really that small. I mean, it is small, but comparing it to other things like the Dan case and any real small form factor case, this is still quite large. However, you're not really limited by GPU size. That is, if you plan your build. And the other thing I want to mention is, if you're building something like this, make sure you check NZXT's list of compatible motherboards, because I have a feeling there will be some boards that won't fit in here, although, you know, anything can fit at the end of the day if you try hard enough and if you have an angle grinder, so it won't make much of a difference. And I'm sure if you really want it to fit, you get it to fit anyway. But like I said, it only supports ITX motherboards, nothing bigger, nothing smaller, actually probably smaller. You could probably put a Raspberry Pi in here if you really wanted to waste a case. There are a few little nuances with this case, and I just want to talk about them before I forget. The cooler comes pre-installed with the Intel cooler bracket. However, there is an AM4 bracket in the box as well, so you can actually mount this on any of your Ryzen chips too. And I think I mentioned already, this board has Intel cooler mounting, but it's a Ryzen chip, that's why I left the Intel cooler mounting on there. And for the ITX TB3 from ASRock, it fits no problem. I had no problems whatsoever getting it all to work. Now, the most important part of the video, how much does it cost? Because at the end of the day, it comes with a power supply and a cooler pre-installed. Are you ready, Claire?
I'm ready.
You ready for the price?
Hit me.
The price for the NZXT H1 is $350 US, or around 569 Australian dollars at the time of filming this video. That is a super expensive small form factor case. However, if you take into account how much small form factor cases cost anyway, and you're getting like a cooler that already fits in the case and a pretty up there high powered power supply for a small form factor case, I hate to say it, but considering those things, it might be right on the money, because SFX power supplies alone are pretty expensive. 140mm AIOs, they do exist, but they're kind of hard to come by. So it being in there already and turning this more into like a bare bones type of PC might be attractive for people who are building their first small form factor PC. You don't actually have to go out and buy extra parts, they're all there for you. But this is going to be a controversial opinion, I can tell already. But yeah, I'll let you guys make up your mind what you think about it. Yeah, 13.6 litres. Is it too little? Is it too much? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what small form factor cases you guys are keen for us to check out, because we've had heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of suggestions. I did a YouTube community post a couple weeks ago and you guys like had some really good suggestions, but I'm gonna try and get my hands on some of them really soon so we can do more of these, because these are really fun and I like to see what we can squeeze into these little cases. What do you reckon, Claire? You think we're done?
I think so.
Okay, we're done, ladies and gents. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, you can hit the join button or you can join us on Floatplane. If you didn't like this video, you know what to do, and tell us what you hated about it. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. And yeah, this case is really, really nice. The price is pretty up there. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite up there, but at the same time, you are getting a cooler and a power supply, and both of those things can be pretty expensive. So I don't know, is NZXT passing the savings on to you, or are they just making you pay more for parts you can buy by yourself? Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.